Hey there, Ramblers and Rovers, this is Miguel, your friendly, traveling, nomadic writer. Here to share with you some of my favorite travel tips. We're going to be talking about 5 things that you should not forget to do before you leave. Believe me, these 5 things are things that are very easily overlooked, and there are things that could turn the trip of a lifetime into quite a nightmare. So in order to ensure that you're going to have the smoothest, most enjoyable, stress-free travel experience, make sure that you have these bases checked before you leave. Starting with number 1, check your passport validity date. Your most important travel document when you go abroad is always going to be your passport. It's the necessary document that is going to be asked of you if you're going to enter any foreign country, unless there's a specific arrangement between your country of origin and that destination country. And it's so easy to overlook the expiration date on your passport. Make sure that your passport is up to date and that you don't need to renew it. Obviously, this is one of the first things you have to make sure, and you need time to verify it, because if you need to take corrective action and get another passport, depending on where you live, this could take some time. Just something that is very, very important to note here is that if your passport has less than 6 months until it's expired, it's as good as expired. That's because it's standard for most countries to give travelers up to 6 months in any given destination. So they can't give you a visa for longer than 6 months. And if your passport expires before those 6 months, they might shorten your visa to suit the expiration date on your passport, or worse, just deny you entry when you arrive at that country. Believe me, I know of people who have gone on international trips with passports that have been about to expire, and it turned into a nightmare. This is a very, very easy thing to avoid. So just make sure that your passport is valid, and remember to make sure that you have more than 6 months between when you're arriving to the country and when you're leaving. Which leads us to number 2, check the visa requirements. It's very easy to forget to check the visa requirements for a country, and depending on where you're traveling, this could be anything from simply just breathing and having a passport to having updated travel shots. For example, if you're going to be in a malaria prone region, such as when you're going to certain countries in South America or Africa, for example. So it's very, very important to check these requirements with time so you can prepare adequately, and to make sure that you have all of your travel documentation in order to avoid any hassle at the border. Some of the most important documents are obviously going to be, like we mentioned before, having your valid passport, and the second most important will most likely be having proof of onward travel, which means that you are not just going to go to a country and move there on a tourist visa. This is anything from booking accommodations in another country to plane tickets leaving that country. So it's better to prepare with time to make sure that you have all the requirements way before you reach the border. Like it says in The Art of War, a battle is won before it even starts, and this applies to visa requirements as well. You better go in prepared so that you make sure that you have no problems crossing that border and just having an amazing experience in this new land that you're visiting. Just something to take note of: some countries require that you apply for a visa. You don't just get it granted when you reach the port of entry. So it's important for you to check the requirements per country you're going to visit, so that you make sure that you don't have to apply for it before you leave on your trip, as this can take quite some time depending on the country. Number 3, check your flight and accommodation status. So oftentimes we think we have everything in order, but one of the constant things in travel is that things change, and you have to readapt and find a new plan to changing circumstances. Unfortunately, this also applies to flights and accommodation. So just a few days before your flight, just make sure that you check your flight status to see if for any reason, just weather, operative problems, disturbances, or any other reason, that your flight or your booking hasn't been cancelled. The reason you do this with a few days anticipation is just to make sure that you can rebook your flight or adapt your plans so that it doesn't ruin the whole trip. This has happened to me, for example, when I visited the US during early spring, late winter, and you have these unexpected snowstorms that close off airports. I've had airports close for days at a time, and I'm having to track the flight from day to day to make sure that I am on the next available flight to my destination so that the whole trip isn't just ruined. So it always pays to make sure that everything is in order right before you go. And obviously, if you're flying somewhere and the flight gets canceled, it's kind of game over for the whole trip, so it's an important thing to check. Number 4 is all about that money, and that is check your credit card validity and the withdrawal limits. This is such an easy thing to overlook, especially if you are traveling long term. Traveling with an expired card will very quickly ensure that your trip turns into an actual nightmare, because if you have no way to access your funds, it's gonna make travel a lot more difficult. Plan ahead, make sure that all the cards that you're bringing, your credit cards, your debit cards, are all going to be valid during the time when you're going to be abroad. Make sure that you have them paid down as much as you can. It always helps to have some credit, because you never know what kind of emergencies or even opportunities that you're going to have while on the road. And it's always a great idea to have a little bit of extra money or access to a little bit of extra money just in case you need it. An important thing to remember here is to call your bank and let them know that you're going to be using the card in another country, just so that your card doesn't get blocked on arrival and you are scrambling to find a way to call your bank in your home country from this other place. So very easy, just pick up the phone, call your bank, let them know. So number 5 is kind of an optional, but also a very good idea to have it, depending on what kind of a trip you're going to have. And that is to remember to get travel insurance. When you travel, you never know what's going to happen. An unexpected slip or accident while you're having an adventure somewhere. If you're rock climbing or surfing on a beach in Mexico and you hit your arm a little too hard on the beach. All kinds of diseases that you can get while traveling, anything from traveler's diarrhea to a very strong flu or virus. Just anything can happen while traveling. So it's always a good idea to have travel insurance of some kind to cover you for any of the unexpected things that happen while travel. And we all know that the unexpected is the expected while traveling. So whether you already have insurance in your home country and all you need is an extension to cover you during your trip abroad, or maybe it's already included in your plan, or maybe it's not, and you probably should get travel insurance for this specific trip. It just depends on what you're doing, what your risk is going to be in this new country, and what kind of activities you're going to do. So it's always a great idea to have some extra protection. Remember that travel insurance also tends to cover lost luggage, theft, and other kinds of incidentals that are very common occurrences while traveling. So that's it, guys. You're all set and you're ready for your next adventure. So we hope you found some value in these travel tips. Remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel, it keeps us growing. We're trying to reach 1,000 new subscribers to expand this amazing community of adventurers, ramblers, and rovers so that we can keep bringing you amazing travel content, hacks, tips, and incredible adventures and stories from all around the world. So until our next adventure, amigos, travel safe, adios.